All right, guys. Another day, another lesson. Unit 1, Lesson 2.3, Accessing Health Services. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a lot of things that you're probably familiar with, but maybe you just didn't think that deep on, okay? So I'm going to go to the textbook link here where it says text starts page 50. You do have to answer questions from this link. If you try to Google it, it won't give you the same answers. I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger. Drag it over. Okay, so here's the learning outcomes for this. Summarize how people access health services in the United States. Explain the rights of minors to seek health services. Analyze the importance of getting regular checkups and screenings. Identify when health services are needed to treat a medical condition, and list the steps in seeking treatment for a health condition, okay? This is going to be broke up into two sections. So we're going to cover pages 50, 51, and 52. And then tomorrow, or for the next part of this lesson, you will cover the other few pages and answer the questions that I've given you for those. All right, so healthcare. Healthcare's definition here is listed: medical care that seeks to prevent and treat health conditions. So whether it is a preventative action or you're treating something that you already know that you have, let's say you sprained your wrist and then you go to the doctor, that is healthcare. Or if you were to go to the doctor and ask them to look you over, run some tests, and make sure that you don't have any underlying conditions such as asthma or, let's say, cancer, something that is could be worse or get worse. Maybe they tell you that you're a little underweight, something in that nature. That is also healthcare. It seeks to prevent as well. Those are forms of healthcare. Understanding the healthcare industry. So this is something that I've been slapped in the face with the past few years. I am a 28-year-old person, and once you are 25, in most situations, you will be kicked off of your parents' or guardians' health care. What that means is you will be responsible to find a job that either makes enough money if you're self-employed and own your business to buy health care and pay for insurance, or you will find a job such as one like in the school building where the company has a health insurer. And a lot of times you have to be a full-time worker, which means you work about 32 hours a week or more in order to get granted that health insurance, okay? So let's say you hit 25, you don't have any health insurance, and you get injured, and it is a serious injury. Let's say you get in a car wreck, and you suffer some serious trauma, internal bleeding, things like that, and you go to the hospital, and they won't treat you because you don't have health insurance, and they don't think that you can cover a $75,000 medical bill. You might not be able to get treatment, okay? And that's an issue. Or let's say you do end up getting treatment later. It could absolutely ruin your credit, things like that. Things that you can't recover from that you would be able to recover from if you had a form of health insurance. Let's say financially you couldn't recover from it. All right, so let's jump into it a little bit here. Going to the next page. Primary care physician, PCP, or doctor. All right, so this is the most basic thing. All right, when somebody says go to the doctor, why don't you go to the doctor? That is your primary care physician. That is the person you go in there, you take a seat, you go in, you see them, they ask you how everything's been. They look at your past medical history. That's where you go if you have the flu or whatever. You just go to your primary care physician. It's usually the same person every time. Sometimes if you go to an office, they might have somebody else in there that might see you. They might have a couple different doctors. But generally, you're going to see your main doctor. For instance, an example here in Hebron is Dr. Michael Dragon. He works under the St. Elizabeth Health Network, but he sees a lot of individuals one-on-one, and he is a family doctor. Okay, that is your PCP. Like those, another person that could be a primary care physician is someone called a nurse practitioner. A nurse practitioner is someone a nurse who has advanced training. That person, just to clear up speculation, a nurse could be a male or a woman. Nurse does not have a gender associated with it or a sex. A nurse could be a male or woman, and a nurse practitioner has the ability to oftentimes write prescriptions. Prescriptions are a very big deal because you can't just go anywhere to get some of those medications because they're either highly addictive, they have a lot of side effects, things like that. So a regular nurse could not prescribe you something. A nurse practitioner is like a doctor in the fashion that they can prescribe you something because they have the training for that. They've, took the time to find out things about dosage, study different types of medicines. They have the training to where it is acceptable for them to look at you, evaluate you, and prescribe you. Okay? Those are PCPs. All right, specialist. If you suffer a concussion and you go to your primary care physician and they say, man, this looks bad. You're telling me that we're 3 weeks away. You should be kind of recovered from a normal concussion, but you're telling me you're getting really bad migraines, you're sensitive to light, etc., etc. We're going to have you go see a specialist. A specialist in the realm of something like a concussion would be a neurologist, okay? And that's going to be listed down here. It'll talk about neurologist diseases and disorders of the brain, nerves, and spinal cord. They would suggest that you go see a neurologist who is a specialist. And specialists don't end at the brain, okay? There are foot specialists, there are bone specialists and joint specialists like a chiropractor. A cancer specialist is an oncologist. So there are different specialists. Basically, when your primary care physician goes through school, they get a very wide variety of information and they learn a wide variety of things because they got to treat a lot of general disorders, okay? Generally, things aren't less severe. Okay, once a severe thing happens, they're going to refer you to a emergency medical institution, or they're going to refer you to someone that has a lot of training in one area, aka the specialist. So they're a specialist for this reason, a neurologist who's a specialist in the brain because their schooling was focused around the brain. So they've seen more brains, they've done more studies on brains, they've read more articles, they've seen other history of medical experiments with the brain, etc., etc. So who would you want to work on your car? Somebody that has worked on 5,000 cars or somebody that has worked on 20? So it's kind of for that reason, okay? It's somebody that has seen or dealt with this area of the brain or this expertise many times over. That was their focus, okay? They'll send you over to a specialist to get you checked out and get you the proper treatment, make sure that your concussion and your sensitivity to light is not something overly severe. Okay, moving on. There's these two things called inpatient facilities and outpatient facilities. Inpatient facilities are healthcare facilities in which patients reside for the duration of the treatment. That means you're there. So if you're an inpatient facility, that means you are on site. That means you're in a hospital bed, you're in a room in a nursing home. You have to have medical attention close by for whatever reason. It could be because you're elderly and maybe you're not able to get around very good, or you need a lot of medicines and you need somebody to continually come in and check on you, or you could be in a bed because you're suffering from some heart defects and they don't want you to go home because they want a nurse there in case all of a sudden you are more prone to go into like a cardiac arrest where your heart stops. They can monitor your heartbeat, things like that. An inpatient facility is anywhere that you're staying for a while or a few days, etc. Okay? Outpatient facilities. And to remember these, you can think you're in the hospital, or you're in the facility. Out, you're out of the facility. So it's kind of the other way around. Outpatient facilities are anything that you can walk through the door and walk right back out the door after you've gotten what you need, the treatment, etc. So that is like an urgent care emergency room. Let's say you got something in your eye, you got a piece of sawdust in your eye and you absolutely can't get it out. You have to go to the emergency room. They have to flush it out. Something like that. You go in, once they're done, you can walk out the door. You don't have to stay overnight, etc. All right, so that's inpatient versus outpatient facilities. This is a table of some of the different specialists that you can look at. Heart disease is a cardiologist. Skin conditions, I've had a dermatologist. He is 95 years old and he works downtown Cincinnati. Pretty crazy. Graduated from college in like the 1940s. Oncologist, cancer, orthopedist, they're somebody that works with the bones, joints, and muscles. Psychiatrist, mental health conditions. So somebody facing depression would probably go see a psychiatrist. Surgeon, medical conditions, obviously requiring that person to cut into you, do some form of surgery, etc. Next page. All right, this is the last page that we're going to cover right now just because we don't have much time. The basics of insurance. So this is what I got hit with when I turned 25. All right, there's two different types, main types, I should say. HMO, that is a health maintenance organization, and then there's a preferred provider organization. They're similar in a lot of ways. Here's the deal, okay? See this word, who are in the HMO network, okay? Network provider is a important term when it comes to health insurance. So basically what that is let's say you have Anthem, which is probably the biggest health insurance company in the United States. Anthem Blue Cross, it's what I have. If you have Anthem, they have deals with certain doctor's offices to where if a patient goes and visits them that Anthem covers, the doctor's office and the insurance company kind of have pre-worked out deals. Like, hey, we talked about it. If I have a guy or a girl coming in for this situation, these are kind of the prices that we expect to have to cover for that person. That is a network provider, all right? And it's important to the insurance company because it's the amount of money in an agreement that they've kind of predetermined before somebody that they're covering actually gets one of these injuries on accident, okay, or has a heart disease and has to go visit them or something, okay? That's why it's important to them. So since they have these deals worked out, they're usually a little bit cheaper on the upfront price when you're purchasing or paying for the health maintenance organization. All right, preferred provider. That means you're getting insurance, but you want the freedom to pretty much go to any doctor that you want. So if I get hurt, I want you to cover it because I'm paying you monthly as my insurance provider, but I also want the freedom to go get second opinions if I don't like what your doctor said, or I want to go see a specialist that is not in your network because I've had a family member use them and they really like them, etc. You're going to pay a little bit more for a preferred provider insurance basis, okay? Here's the types of payments that you'll expect when you're paying for insurance. A premium, it's usually a monthly fee, okay? A lot of times they'll have it a year cost. Let's say $2,400 for just one person for a year. You would pay this company $2,400 every year's time, whether that's monthly, you do it all at once, however you want to do it. That's a premium. You might pay them $2,400 and never go to the doctor. You don't get that money back. They still get it. That's why it's called insurance, just in case, all right? So, but the deal is if you pay them that $2,400 and you tear your ACL and go have a $75,000 surgery, you don't have to pay $75,000. You have to pay a deductible of that $75,000. So let's say your deductible is set somewhere between usually $250 and $1,000. Let's say you have a $500 deductible. Instead of paying $75,000, since you paid that $2,400 premium over the year's time, or you're paying monthly, you only have to pay $500 instead of $75,000, and then you usually have an out-of-pocket max. So you're paying that deductible, and it might go up. You might have to pay a certain percentage of the surgery. You might pay like $5,000, which is a pretty darn good deal considering. Copayment. A copayment's generally when you walk into a doctor's office, they're going to be, all right, you got a copayment of $20 or $10. That's just, it's kind of like every time you do one of these small little trips, let's say you do tear your ACL and you got to make 25 random trips to doctors and rehab centers and things like that. Each time you go in there, you got to pay like a small amount. It's just in the part of the agreement. It's fixed. It doesn't change. Whatever your insurance is, you'll walk into the doctor's office. They'll take your insurance card. They'll upload it onto their computer so they have it. And that's kind of how they get that information. Okay. So those are the basics of insurance and accessing some of those health services. I will cover more on the next video for the next few pages of this lesson.